Okay, well, we've got a few of you in, which is fantastic. I'm just going to give everyone 1 and a bit more minutes, but we will get started pretty much at 12. Thank you, everybody who's here. We'll just give everyone about 30 more seconds and then we'll get started. All right, I think we should get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And let's begin with our acknowledgement. QUT acknowledges the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where QUT now stands. We pay respect to their elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits. We recognise these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. And QUT acknowledges the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QUT community. Okay, so we're just going to go through a few quick reminders to begin. Won't take very long, a bit of housekeeping, and then talking about arguments and abstracts. And then we'll have plenty of time for any other questions or comments that you'd like to make. So let's do a tiny bit of housekeeping. So just for some of you in the Padlets, you'll see your name comes up as anonymous. So just remember to pop your name in, even just at the end, so we know who you are. And of course, thank you everyone who's been engaging in those discussion forums. It's actually been really lovely that you've been commenting on each other's as well. That's been great. Just another quick reminder that I will keep reminding you about, especially these first few weeks, is your peer feedback groups. I can see in there that a lot of you have been posting, which is fantastic, but not always is someone in your group responding. So please pop into those peer feedback groups and set up the best way for you to communicate. You know, even if you buddy up with just one other person or two other people in your group, figure that out as soon as you can. If I have also noticed in some of them that someone has gone in and made a lovely first up comment, but then nobody else has engaged. So that's not going to be helpful for you. Please let us know, Alexandra and I, and we can put you into another group. If we can really get these worked out so that everybody's in a good place and happy with their groups as soon as we can, that's going to make it much better for everybody moving forward. And I've said before, I think in the announcement, that if you're someone who's not going to engage with the peer feedback group that you're in, that's okay, but please let the others know so that they can figure out who is going to be with them these 12 weeks and who isn't. So, you know, no judging there. But certainly we just need to know who wants to be part of it and if you don't. So please just get in contact with Alexandra and I, or just let your peer feedback group. So we had that peer feedback activity last week with the arguments. And then this week it's about your abstracts. So a really good opportunity to get into the best process for your groups. And there's no new feedback activity next week, so you've got plenty of time on those abstracts if you need it. If you have any questions around that, let me know. You can pop something in the chat or we can talk about it near the end. But just really good if we can get those up and running and everybody happy and where they want to be. All right, so talking about time, you noticed in these first few weeks, there was a lot about the scheduling and the planning, and we mentioned that in week 1, didn't we? You know, that it's really good opportunity to get on track and have your schedule where you need it to be. So time goes, it's one of our biggest enemies. I know it's one of my biggest enemies. So if you're feeling like you're not progressing, don't panic, work at your own pace and just keep doing the reflection activities, keeping track of your time and figuring out how you can be more productive, of course, and just stay focused. You've got your aims for your publishing, keep them clear so you can be motivated. We sometimes, you know, saying, oh, this is hard. Why am I doing this? You're doing this because you want a publication. So keep that in your mind, of course. If you need a little bit of a pep up to figure out, oh, how can I be more productive? Go back to week 1, go back to those planning calendars and the addressing of obstacles and that idea of procrastination and busyness. I think we've probably all got our head around the procrastination now, and being part of the module, you've got things that you need to be doing. But the busyness, which I've spelled incorrectly there, but the busyness is something that is happening to all of us. We have competing tasks all the time. So if you need to get, you know, your head around again, am I really that busy? Go back to your scheduling and your tracking of the time. And most importantly, yeah, be kind to yourself. So in keeping track of your productivity, excuse me, it's not about being more anxious. Just one sec. Oh, sorry. It's not about trying to make you more anxious. It's about making you less anxious. So reflecting and shedding light can help you improve. And try to block that writing time or the time for the activities and really make that something precious that you don't want to give up. And if you can, get a cheerleader, someone who's going to really encourage you and who knows how important this is, and also to keep you accountable. That's part of the role of the peer feedback group. So if you can, you know, manage that, that's a good idea. But even if it's someone in your family or a friend or someone else you know that can just keep checking in and say, how are you doing? Hang in there. That should be really, hopefully, a good help. So a quick poll question now. I'd like to know how you're traveling. Let's go now. So if you want to, it's anonymous. No one will know who said which choice you made. So just interested to know, no judging, as I said, just how are you doing? Just a few more of you to pop your answers in. All right. So for those looking at the recording, we've got most of people saying it's possible I've overcommitted, but I'm ready for the challenge. A couple of people have said, yep, absolutely up for it. And a couple have said, I'm not sure, but I'm going to try. So that's nice. Everybody is feeling at least almost on track at the moment. So that's good. Okay. So in the chat, let's keep going. All right. So as I keep saying, you know, just work at your pace. If you can try that writing every day, even if it's for 15 minutes, I'm sure you will see, you know, the results of that. And also, just remember that timed focus session, you know, you need to know what you're going to write, don't you? So make sure you always set yourself up when you finish. So at the end of the day, and you know you've got to race off and do whatever, just little quick note saying, I'm up to this bit, and that'll set you up for when you come back next time. The other thing is 12 weeks is quite a long time. It's actually 13 because we have that break week in the middle. So some weeks you are going to be busier. Stuff is going to happen. We're going to have school holidays. You know, I think during, the September school holidays should be. So that's okay. That's where your planning comes in, doesn't it? Where you know you can anticipate, I'm going to have a busy week next week. I won't have as much time, so I'll need to schedule more this week or the following week. And in saying that, just go back regularly to revisit that 12-week calendar that you did in week 1. And just a quick note too, I'm wondering about your thoughts about imposter syndrome. Do you feel like you sometimes suffer from that? And I guess what I would like to say about that is just always remember that you shouldn't be comparing yourself to others. We don't know. Appearances are not always as they seem. And that's a really good opportunity in this module, is to support and encourage and learn from each other, rather than, you know, if you see someone in your group and you think, oh, wow, they've progressed much further than me, there will be reasons for that. And, you know, it's okay. It's not a competition. So try to keep that under control, that feeling of, oh, I think everybody's doing better than me. They're not necessarily doing better than you. You're doing as well as you can. Research writing, as we know, it's messy, it's hard, it's iterative, and I really want you to understand that your writing is not going to be perfect. This module and this opportunity and all of the activities is about the draft writing. You'll need to keep revising. You'll need to keep seeking feedback. So again, take the pressure off yourself to feeling like you have to have this perfect draft. It's all part of the process, and having many drafts. So with the peer feedback task, just to give you a bit of a heads up. So we had one last week, we've got one this week, nothing in week 4 regarding peer feedback. Weeks 5 and 6, we give you both those weeks to sort of working on your lit review and seeking feedback on your lit review. Week 10, you're going to seek feedback on your title of your articles. And week 11 will be the whole draft. Okay, so you've got that to work towards. So plenty of weeks where there's no specific feedback task. So that's where you want your group to have a good process, where you can say to them, you know, my draft will be ready in this by this date. Give yourself a bit of a deadline, even if it doesn't exactly match with the weeks that we would anticipate. At least let your peers know, so you can still be part of that peer feedback process. And just to finish off my little pep talk, remember, it's always about the reader. Keep the reader in mind. Now, in the textbook, a lot of the activities are revolving around the fact that you're going to send this journal article in and it's going to be reviewed by reviewers. We don't know who they are. They'll obviously have some knowledge of your field and be part of your field, but they won't have knowledge of your exact study. So you already have a bit of their interest. You've got to keep that interest going. So always think about those reviewers. They're not going to know who you are. They won't know about your study. So we need to be very clear and explicit and really lead them through with your strong argument. And as we go through, of course, your claims for significance and all your evidence as well. So get into the reader's shoes. How are you going to do that? By engaging in the peer feedback when you'll be a reader as well. Please don't underestimate the worthwhileness of giving feedback as well as receiving feedback. All right. So keeping clear about the fact you have a reader, we don't want to make them work hard, and think about that idea of a reader-writer dialogue, and that you're persuading the reader to care about your research. So the first step is that argument, that strong argument, isn't it? And then all your evidence that will come afterwards. So if the argument and significance of your research isn't clear, that communication, that two-way communication, it's going to most likely fail. So that's why when you're writing your article and writing all of your drafts, keep on thinking about the reader and what they need to know to be persuaded of the value of your research. And again, seeking feedback. I'll be a broken record about that idea as well. So you've got those opportunities in the module, make the most of them. All right, so now on to you guys and how you're doing. We're just taking a step back to last week and your arguments. So in the discussion, we had probably about a dozen people so far in week 2 talking about their arguments. So thank you. If you haven't gone into that discussion forum, it's quite interesting what everybody's thinking, and also talking about how they went with the argument tests. So why did we focus on the argument in week 2? Because it's the main reason why articles are rejected, because there isn't a clear argument. Okay, so really, really important. Remember, you're going to continue refine. It's okay. We're in week 3 now. If your argument's still not perfect, that's okay. You'll continue to revise it. So I'm interested if anyone wants to share how they went with the argument tests, or any thoughts so far about that part of the module so far. You can pop into the chat, or you can unmute. You can, up to you. What we can do, I guess, if nobody has anything, doesn't look like anyone wants to share. All right, why don't we go in and have a look at Blackboard then? Hang on one sec, I'll stop sharing. All right, so have a look here. Can you see Blackboard all right now? You can see, yep, cool, thank you. All right, so what have we got? So you can see here, we've got quite a few people that have talked about what they've done, which is fantastic. So really we were discussing about the tests, right? So did you guys go through all of them, or did you pull out just some? Anybody? I didn't know we can do tests for the argument 4 with this. Yeah, different type of test in the chat. Yeah, so just some, and that's okay. It's one of the really interesting things that or activities that we're doing in the module, you know, and I think they're really useful. So even if you didn't do them all, that's all right, just pulling out some. So we can see here Elena reflects on the puzzle test. I discovered that my argument resonates most with my inquiries, as they are with naming some fields of study there. Yeah, so the puzzle test was one used by Elena. The obvious test, that's another good one, isn't it? Yeah. What else have we got? So you can see here, Sanaz has said the agree, disagree, and the gut test. Did anybody else do the gut test? Yeah. And was it an I think so when you did it, the gut test? Yeah, all right, that's good. What do we got here? Yeah, immediate dispute test. So everyone's pulling out different ones here, aren't they? Because there were quite a few. The rational test, another observation. Okay, I think the observation test suits well for framing my argument. Yeah. I can see Crancy's here. Yeah. Good. So you can see that there's a lot of thought going into here. Yeah. And Crancy, you thought that it's your gut test as well. Yeah. Good. All right. Anyone else? Any thoughts about the argument test? Seems like you're thinking that they're useful, which is a good thing. All right. So it seems like we're going to move on. All right. Okay, so someone in the chat haven't got this yet. I'm catching up. Yeah, interested in the test, and I'll be looking to use a selection. Awesome. Thank you, Ellie, in the chat. All right, let's go back to the slides. All right. So you'll continue to refine your argument. You can come back anytime, you know. Remember, same as writing is iterative, the module's iterative as well. You know, you might need to come back and do some more of those tests potentially. So yeah, so there's a few people saying I haven't quite got to the tests yet and I'm doing them soon, and that's fine. No problems.
Kerry,
yes,
I'm happy to comment. It's Karen, Kerry.
Hi, Karen.
I did them in what I thought my argument was, and then because I'm also creating my article. Then I'm doing a policy analysis, and then as I got into the policy analysis, I found a whole lot of new ideas that I hadn't thought about. So I'm in this kind of loop at the moment where I'm going from the argument tests and thinking about what my argument is to what my data is in my policy analysis, and then going back. So I'm finding them useful because they do make sure that it's actually an argument, not a description, which was a bit of a hard one to get over.
Yeah, and it is. You're right. You're exactly right. And what you're describing there, again, completely normal. So if you do, and this is not necessarily where you're at, Karen, but if you feel like you're going a little bit in circles, you know, that I keep going back and forwards and backwards and forwards, just keep your argument there. Leave it and say, okay, this is what it is at this point, and that's okay. And then just leave a note knowing, you know, maybe in 3 or 4 weeks or less to go back. So at some point, yes, we need to sort of let go. I know we keep saying it's an iterative process and you're going back and forth, but at the same time, you might just need to leave it and sit there and think, okay, and then what will happen is as you keep going and looking at all the other parts of your article, that's where you might have a light bulb come on and say, oh, okay, the argument's all right, but actually I need to add something in, or I need to reword it a little bit because I've worked out in another section, remembering your argument needs to be threaded all the way through. You know, especially if you're still analyzing the data, you might be still refining the literature review. So yeah, it's all right to say, okay, this is what I think that it's going to be, my argument, but I may have to come back at some point. Someone's got their hand up. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Karen? Thanks for sharing, by the way.
No, that's all right. No, it's good advice. And yes, I think I will put it to one side at the moment and keep going, because I can see how you could easily play chasing your own tail with it. So
yeah. And you know, when we get near the end of the module, one of the really important pieces of advice that Wendy actually gives is, you know, let it go. You've put in all this work, you've done all the activities, trust yourself, knowing as well that you've done your best work and you're going to send it to the reviewers and they're going to give you feedback too. So yeah, it's certainly hard to let go, isn't it? But yeah, so to be able to move on, just let it sit there for a while, and you know, maybe you'll be able to make it stronger as you progress. I think that's Lisa. You wanted to mention something?
Hi, Kerry.
Hi.
It was just on the note about that refinement, because I've just I've near enough finished the draft for an article that was in the first time I sort of moved through a portion of this course.
Mm-hmm.
And I just pulled up what my argument was to start with, and I went over and over again. And when I came back to the findings and dug deeper into the findings, and then dug deeper into the lit review to see why my findings were different from the literature, I had to pare back my argument back to, actually, I'm building on this other one study out of all these thousands of studies that has done that. So my argument then got simpler, just based on someone else's previous work that I'm adding to, which I hadn't known at that particular point because I hadn't seen that one paper that moved the discussion a bit further. And I hope that's okay. It was just, I was going round and round in circles with the argument.
Yeah, exactly. That's what, you know, and Karen is saying the same thing. It's completely normal. And, you know, being able to just say, okay, this is what I think it is at the moment, and then I'm going to move on and I'm going to keep coming back and double checking. And what you just said too about in the end you simplified it, that's fantastic. Who is that going to help? That simplified statement of what your argument is, who's that going to help? It's going to help the reader, isn't it? Because you think about all the things you've been reading and thinking and everything that's going on, and by making it simple, it's going to help the reader to understand. And we want the reader to get a deep understanding. Yeah.
I think when I first looked at the argument, I then looked at other examples, they were very succinct and simple. And I was going, well, my data says this. That's not simple. And it really is. I'm literally going to take a chunk out of the first paper that I'm talking about to actually simplify it even further, and then pull that into the second paper, which is the purpose of this particular course at the moment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's such great advice. Yeah, thank you.
But you have to be on top of the findings, a deeper dig of the findings, plus where the literature, maybe a new paper's just come out. And that was what happened to me. And I was like, oh, I haven't seen this paper.
Yeah, and that makes your paper even more current as well by having that. I mean, we can't know when a new paper is going to come out. So, you know, if it happens to you that you've submitted something and then something else came out, yeah, you can't help that. But I think here's another thing that's really important that we need to trust in this process that we're going through and keep in our minds as well, that if you're taking the article from your thesis research, which most of you most likely are, your thesis has a lot of stuff going on. You can't talk about it all. And you just pull out that one thing. That's what good articles are. They're about one significant finding where you go very deeply into it and pull it all apart and say, okay, this is what the literature says, and you acknowledge the opposite views. If there is an opposite view, that strengthens your argument as well by saying, well, I've found this evidence that actually contradicts this other view, which makes your argument stronger. And yeah, try not to pack in 100 things. That's where we go a little bit crazy. Oh, but I want to add this. Oh, I need to add this. If it's not going to strengthen that one strong argument, then potentially we don't need it in the article. And exactly like you said, Lisa, there's the next article, you know. So that's great. That's really good. Thank you for sharing. In the chat, we've had someone saying, sounds like I need to go through a topic scope, out of scope exercise. Yeah, absolutely. So when you're thinking about this, and that's part of your publication plan too, you know, is, all right, I have all these really great findings or arguments that I could put into a publication, and really narrow down how many articles you could get out of your thesis. You know, if you're doing thesis by publication, then of course you're going to have, you know, 2, 3, or 4 at least. But even if you're doing by monograph, potentially you could get 2 or 3 out of your thesis. So, and they may build on each other as well. So I think we talked about that in week 1, maybe, about the public, you know, you might have more than one publication. So that's all part of the process. And really narrowing down your argument, you might find that you've got a couple of arguments. So that could be more than one paper. All right. Anyone else? Anything you wanted to say about the arguments? No, looks like we're good to go. All right. So this week it was all about the abstracts. Did you find that odd? Anybody? Were you sort of thinking, it's a bit early to write my abstract, or were you all on board? Maybe after sort of having a look about the reasons why, potentially that, yep. So someone's giving me a thumbs up that they were on board. Or Pip, yeah.
So yeah, I think I like the idea of it, because I think it kind of makes you sort of very succinctly summarize and put a very clear structure to what your article is going to be about.
Mhm.
You know, 100 to 200 words is not much at all. So I think, and I know I have I have a problem with writing far too much. So I think having that task is going to be really useful to just find out exactly what are the key things that I'm actually talking about here.
Yeah, and it helps with your structure. And again, what we were just saying about the argument, maybe it'll make you, you know, for some of you, you might realize, oh wow, I have more than what I need for one article. Maybe I can do 2 or 3, you know. And of course that requires a bit of planning, trying to figure out, you know, what you know, what your topics exactly are going to be in those articles. But it does, exactly, it forces you to clarify what you're doing. And you know, and also to see, because not everybody already is working on a draft that they previously had. We've got people that are writing from scratch, people that might only have had a little bit of a draft ready to go. So it also helps you to know, okay, I need to do more lit review, or I need to continue with my data analysis, or whatever it might be. Lisa? Or was your hand up from before?
Yeah, no, it was. So the paper I was going to be starting on now is now not possibly going to be that paper because I noticed that there was a call for submissions from a journal for the 3rd paper, and I was like, well, maybe I do that async and completely pivot, just because there is. So it is worth doing a quick check now to see which journal, if there's any sort of invitations to submit for special articles or special editions. And
yeah, that's great.
like, it was like, I was going to do that as a chapter in my thesis. Once I've got this approved by my supervisor, I'm probably going to do the abstract for the particular special edition, because it's quite poignant.
Great. And they've probably got a fairly strict deadline that's looming, or
4 weeks for the abstract.
okay.
And then the paper by, I think, November.
Okay.
But that needs me to, it needs me to have an overview of the findings, because I don't know the findings yet to be able to write the abstract. So assuming that they will allow us to change the abstract, I don't know. Yeah,
there's usually a little bit of flexibility. And how long does the abstract need to be?
Oh, I think it's just 220, 250.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. So, and you know, that skill, I guess, of writing abstracts is really going to set you up for all sorts of things where eventually you'll be able to. So in this case, you've got 4 weeks, but sometimes you might come across a special issue like that and think, oh, that would be so great. And if you can whip up an abstract in, you know, a couple of weeks or whatever, because you're used to what you need it to look like, and the structure and the wording, and, you know, the persuading language, because you want, you know, in that 220 words, you need to convince some people that this is something worth reading and publishing.
Well, for me, I was going to probably if I send it, it'll be with a caveat that I haven't finished finalizing the data yet, but this is what this is potentially going to look like when I submit, to try and get myself in the door for that edition.
Yeah. Good luck. You've got a lot going on. Thanks for sharing. So really good advice again. Thank you. So I've had a few in the chat, still drafting in the early stages, and that's okay, but you've made a start. Ellie's saying mine's rudimentary at the moment. Yep, that's okay as well. Again, you know, just have your draft there, and then you'll come back and make it better and better. Yeah, all right, excellent. Now, I just had this question here. This week you had there is the activity about, you know, just getting that initial feedback on your ideas from a family member or friends. Has anyone had a go at that as yet? That was this week. I haven't made that up, have I? Let me have a quick look. Yeah, it must be this week. Yes, it is. I haven't made it up. All right. So, someone has. Do you want to share how you went? Was it a discussion, Kerry, in the chat?
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, from other HDR students at my in my school,
Mm-hmm.
and talking about the abstract, right?
Yep.
So the abstract that I've posted up on the Padlet, I decided to get ahead this week instead of being behind, is from feedback. So it's been fine-tuned from feedback and condensed down to 200 words.
Nice, nice. And was that feedback verbal? Did you describe your ideas, or did they read your abstract?
So, you know, in describing my, you know, when they say, oh, well, what's it about? So you kind of tell them, okay, and then reading the abstract, and we had like a shared Google Doc up, and really they were fine with it. They just sort of gave me some, I think a sentence in like the second or third sentence in, they just sort of added a few words that helped me articulate what I was blabbering on about, and they made it more concise.
Which is good, because when we're looking at it, you know, sometimes the fresh set of eyes can really, you know, something that was quite obvious really, but we're so close to it, we don't see. So that's awesome. And so a little bit of both. Was it a bit of verbal, bit of written, but mainly written?
Well, yeah, I mean, they haven't read the whole article, so
No,
I
that's okay.
explained the whole thing, and then they read what I had written as an abstract and just fine-tuned it a little bit, not a lot. So, but that second or third sentence, I think they sort of said, oh, when I was trying to explain the gap, and it's sort of, they added the yet da 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 in the literature or something like that. I mean, I've put it up on the Padlet, so
okay, great.
yeah, I'm really happy with the way it is. We'll see how we roll with this group, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So yeah, you're someone who would recommend being brave and seeking peer feedback.
Oh, totally. Because well, I don't know where you all come from, but I can vouch for my university that in my school, we're all really friendly, cooperative. From what I have experienced thus far in, you know, the 4 or 5 years I've been at, it's now Uni SC, I don't feel any threat or any, you know, corporate climbing or any of that kind of stuff going on with my peers. Where I'm very blessed with a nice bunch of HDR students to hang out with.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So a few people, thanks for sharing, Kerry. A few people in the chat have said that they haven't done, they haven't sought feedback from family or friends. Now, it doesn't have to be. We've just recommended that just to, they may have a little bit more time if you're with them, and that idea of and the assumption would be as well that they're not in your field of study. Therefore, by you saying, hey, this is my research, this is what it's about, you know, in some ways you almost have to work harder to persuade and to convince them and to clarify to them not only what you're doing, but why you're doing it and why it would be of value. So, so please give it a go if you can. I mean, we're only at the beginning of this week, so potentially you've got it scheduled in, but certainly, so it's in which section? Yeah, so it's section E in this week's content, seeking feedback on your ideas. And again, we're coming back to that idea that writing is a social practice. It's a two-way dialogue, and therefore the more times you're able to get feedback on that dialogue, the better it'll be. So really good if you, so thanks Kerry in the chat. People that gave me the best feedback were not business students but CI, creative industry students. Yeah, see, so that's a really good a good tip as well. So, and you know, so I explain in the video about writing being a social practice and trying to encourage you to do this activity. And I say in that video that, you know, what you want is ultimately, so you're telling them this is what it's about, and then really take notice of I mean, even while you're telling them, you'll be able to know by their facial expressions whether they're with you or whether they're not with you. So you can make note of that. And it'll be really interesting to see someone's perspective when they're not close to that field of study and potentially don't really know much about what you're doing. And, you know, I think that it's just a really valuable opportunity. And remember too, this is talking as well. I mean, you can give them something written if you wanted to, but the idea of the exercise is, you know, to help you to be able to talk about it and articulate it, and then eventually to get to that really tight couple of sentences that really describes exactly what you're doing and why. So what else can we talk about with the abstract? So a few people actually have already gone into the discussion forum for this week. Elena, writing as a social practice is hugely important. I'm finding out. Yeah, the exercise was valuable and showed me what was important to include. So thank you. That's really good. Elena in the discussion forum is saying that she explained everything to one of her friends. And yes, you've really got it there. Elena's saying as well about the keywords and sentences and whether they resonated with her person that she got the feedback from. Tiff is on the discussion forum as well and saying, yeah, the use of the lay terms was important. Yeah, and look, that idea of discipline-specific vocabulary, or do you use the lay terms, partly that will depend on your journal, you know, and who the readers of the journal that you plan to submit to. So as we know, some journals are very, very specific, and the readers are very specific, and then some journals are read quite widely. So that would also tell you how much, and also your field of study too, I think, as well. So you'll gauge that. So that's not too hard to change later if you need to go back from the more lay terms and you need to actually add in the more technical terms. You can definitely do that. Yeah, and also Tiff is saying it helped to make her think about the bigger picture. Yeah, and remember, the argument is about the big picture. The abstract is about the big picture. And then when we start getting into the literature review and the findings and results and discussion, then we're starting to narrow to your study, aren't we? So think of that. That's a really good point, actually, from Tiff, is when we look at the article as a whole, it begins with that big picture. It always has to begin with the big picture, and then we narrow down to exactly your study. And then what do we do at the end in the conclusion? We come back to the bigger picture to some extent. So that was really good. So there's just a couple of people in the discussion so far, but looks to me, yeah. And then Leah has a really good comment as well. I found that discussing my abstract with someone else helped me find places where I had assumed understanding but not explained enough. Yes, that's exactly right, because we know what we mean, but will the reader know exactly what we mean? I'd made leaps that a reader could not necessarily follow. That's what Leah says there in the discussion forum, which is, again, really good advice. And the feedback obviously there will be really helpful. Awesome. That's really great for those that have already added in. And I'm sure, as I said, we're only on Tuesday, so some of you would obviously not have got to that point as well. All right, so I think we can, what have we got? Yep, we're pretty well on time. So now, has anyone got any comments or any questions about anything, you know, about their articles, about the module so far? Anyone got anything they'd like to ask? Remember, we've got the ask for help as well on Blackboard. So if anything ever pops up, just email or put in the ask for help. I check it all the time. But you can always email me or Alexandra. Alexandra's here, by the way. So
I'm here in the background.
you are. Thank you. All right. Any questions? Anything, any thoughts? No, everyone seems to be, oh, I think there's something new. Okay, yeah, so thanks, Pip. All good. I think, I know a lot of people are not, we don't just have QT participants, which is lovely. I think it's really nice to have people from other universities as well. So potentially within your peer feedback groups, you've got people from other universities, which is really nice and a nice way to get feedback and make some connections, which is lovely. All right, well, there's nothing really else that I need to say other than hang in there, keep working hard and trust in the process. That's what I always say. And please, please, with your peer feedback groups, you know, we've made them big because of the fact we know that some people don't want to engage, some people want to engage a lot. So just try as soon as you can to figure out who's doing what. And even if within that bigger group, if you want to buddy up with someone who's at the same sort of wanting the same kind of amount of feedback and engagement, or please let Alexandra and I know if we can help in any way, because we really want those groups to work well and be what you need them to be. In the chat, my supervisor usually asks me to do this topic problem method instead of writing the argument. That's okay. That's all right. So the argument is really an extension of the topic anyway, and the argument is also an extension of the problem. So, you know, you're not really going against what your supervisor is saying, would be what I would say. But yeah, you know, it's all encompassing. I like that there has to be a research problem, you know, and your argument would be an extension of that. If there's no research problem, why are you doing the research in the first place? So, but obviously with your argument, you want it to be a strong statement, which could be your potential answer to the research problem, or at least articulating the importance of this problem or the urgency of the problem. So yeah, I mean, everybody has a different way of writing, and the writing process and writing an article, that process as well. The process we're following is one way, but I can say that it worked for me, and I know it's worked for a lot of other people. And if at the same time you're using your supervisor's advice as well, that's perfect. You know, of course you've got to, you know, take their advice on board and implement that, but it shouldn't clash too much with what you're doing in the module, I wouldn't imagine. Okay. Anyone else got any thoughts? Any questions? Nope. Everybody seems to be traveling on. I mean, we did that poll at the beginning, so I feel like everybody's, you know, feeling productive, working through the activities. Don't forget we have a break week after week 6. So that's the week of the 5th September. Our next link up is in week 6. So before we have the break week. Hopefully you would somehow have the Zoom link. If not, I'll put it in the announcements and I'll remind you of that. So, and hopefully we'll have a guest speaker of some sort, someone other than me for you to listen to. I'm working on that. And, you know, it's just nice for us to catch up, check in, a little bit of a pep talk, realize you're not alone. the chat. Kranthi, I can talk to you about that a bit later. No, you need to organize the textbook just because of copyright. We have the workbook and we have the module, and we really urge you to get either a copy from your library, a copy of the textbook, or purchase one. I know, you know, the expense of books, but I really believe if you got the ebook or the hard copy, you'll be able to utilize it more than just during this 12 weeks. I think, yeah, it's a really brilliant book. So, and some, I'm not sure what university you're in, but some universities have copies via the library as well.
Yes, Kerry, thanks for the session. Yeah, we do have library books, but it is like just 1 or 2 copies, which are
Yeah.
like very competitive, just available for 3 weeks.
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you can, maybe the e-book would be more a better price, basically. The thing with the hard copy too is it does take a long time. Thomas has just said my book arrived today. Yay. And just opened it, and it's so worth it. I can feel the book giving me clarity. Yeah, perfect. That's great, Thomas. I've got mine right next to me. Oh, you can't see because I'm blurred, but I've got it right next to me. The first time I used it was the first edition. And if you didn't hear me telling you this before, it's the whole reason why I was able to get my PhD completed. So because I needed to have an article and I needed to rush it quite quickly, and I did do that, and I 100% believe it's from working through the book. So WYJA said theirs came yesterday, so cool, that's fantastic, love it. And yeah, you will use it again and again. I mean, I just went in this morning and to reread again about the argument tests, and you know, there's a lot of information and a lot of details in there, but I find that the way it's written, it's very understandable. And as I keep saying, you know, trust in the process. We just said, was it weird to do the abstract so soon? And we all sort of agreed, well, actually, no, it's not, but it's not generally something that we talk about. We always seem to think about the abstract coming at the end, don't we? You know, it's kind of the last thing you might do with your thesis as well, is write the abstract. But just to have that draft to get you really thinking about the big picture, as someone said in the chat just then. Carrie's just asked about, I've purchased the ebook. Do we get a discount on the printed one if we order that? Not sure. Did you get the ebook from the publisher?
I think it was like, it's that Chicago.
Yeah, that's them. Yeah. I'd get in contact with them and say, hey, I've got the ebook. Can you give me a discount on the hard copy? Cool. Good. All right. Anyone else? Anything? Please feel free to put it in the chat, or surely you want to hear from yourselves rather than me. No, everyone seems good. All right. Well, it was lovely to see your beautiful smiling faces. You know, I love doing the module because I like hearing about all of your experiences and being engaged with everybody. Thank you. As I said before, I loved last week. So many of you were commenting on each other's posts in the discussion forums. So now what I need is you to comment on each other's posts in your peer feedback groups. So that's your main task, as well as all of your other tasks, is to check in with your peer feedback group, figure out the people within your group who are going to be the best ones for you to have your little giving and receiving of feedback. If it's not working, let Alexandra and I know, because this is something we're really passionate about, is making sure you guys are happy and have everything you need and are getting the engagement that you want. All right. So, yeah, Thomas is saying maybe his group is a little dead. Potentially, yes. If if you haven't got much engagement up by now, talk to Alexandra and I, and we can get you into another group. WYJA, yes. Yeah, you do come up as anonymous, and the Padlets for some people. So that is, correct me if I'm wrong, Alexandra, the anonymous Padlet comments are because they're not at QUT.
So we should resolve this issue next year because we are changing our platform. But right now, Padlet only allows QUT users to register and display the name. So we are very sorry. That's why we put that comment. Please make sure you put your name each time you comment, so we can address you correctly.
Thank you. And WYJA, if you're at QUT, then you can sign up to Padlet and then your name will come across. If you're not sure, I'm sure Alexandra can help you out.
Yeah, I can send you instructions. Just on the top of your Padlet, you can sign in as a QUT member.
Yeah. So just sign in at the top of the Padlet. You should be right, WYJA. Good. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah. So that's why if you do come up as anonymous, if you pop your name in, and then we know who you are. It's one of the things with the format, but hopefully, as Alexandra said, that'll be rectified. All right. Great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate you spending the time. As I said, I love to see you all, and looks like everyone's traveling fairly well. So that makes me happy. Now, as I said, 12 weeks, 13 weeks is a long time. Never feel bad about contacting Alexandra and I with anything that you need any support with. That's what we're here for. All right. Okay. Well, good luck. Enjoy the rest of the week. Anyone who's in Brisbane, it's a public holiday tomorrow for the ECA show day. So anyone not in Brisbane, we're all having a day off tomorrow. So sorry. All right. Thanks, guys. Oh, end note for Mac. Someone's asking, oh, I don't know. You'll have to Google that one, but it should definitely be possible, would be what I would say. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks for coming. Thanks to everybody for coming. All right. Fabulous. Enjoy your lunch. Thanks, guys. See you.